Welcome to the Stoic Balance. We appreciate you stopping by. Let us ask you this. Do you feel anxious and uneasy all of the time? Do you wake up every morning feeling stressed and nervous about the future? Fears about what is going to happen? If so, you are not alone. These feelings have plagued people for literally thousands of years. Way back in ancient Rome, around 50 BC, an ancient philosopher named Epictetus had some seriously profound insights on how to find true contentment and tranquility, even in a world that feels like it's always spinning out of control. And the craziest part, his teachings are just as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. Epictetus wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. In fact, he was born a slave in Turkey, but despite the hardships he faced, he eventually gained his freedom and went on to become one of the most renowned teachers of Stoic philosophy in Rome. And throughout it all, he managed to find inner peace and leave behind a treasure trove of wisdom on how to live well. So, what can we learn from this ancient sage? Let's face it, life is always going to throw us curveballs, but it's how we react to those challenges that really matters. In this video, we're going to dive deep into some of Epictetus's most powerful teachings and explore how they can help us find greater contentment, peace, and purpose in our lives. Whether you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just plain lost, there's something here for you. Here it goes, with 20 ways to help to live your best life, starting now. Number 1, finding contentment. The idea is that true happiness comes from being content with what you have, not constantly seeking more. As he put it, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. It's human nature to always want more, a nicer car, a bigger house, a more prestigious job title. But this relentless pursuit often leaves us feeling unsatisfied. A healthier approach is appreciating what's already good in your life. Maybe it's having a roof over your head, food on the table, and a loving family. Treasure those things instead of taking them for granted. For example, imagine you're at a nice restaurant with a close friend. You could spend the whole meal distracted by other patrons who seem to be having a better time, or who ordered fancier dishes. Or you could savor the delicious meal in front of you and the joyful company you're sharing. The latter approach leads to a much more positive experience. Apply that same mindset to life. Number 2, expect the worst. Anxiety often comes from fearing an unknown future. Our imaginations run wild with worst-case scenarios. But as Epictetus advises, if you wish to live a life free from sorrow, think of what is going to happen as if it had already happened by envisioning the worst and preparing yourself for it. You take away its power to unsettle you. You realize that even if things go badly, you can handle it. Let's say you have to give a big presentation at work that could make or break a promotion you're hoping for. In the days leading up to it, you're a bundle of nerves, certain you're going to blow it. But what if you sat down and really thought through the worst possible outcome? Maybe your mind goes blank and you botch the presentation. You don't get the promotion. It would be disappointing and embarrassing, but you'd recover. Life would go on. Armed with that perspective, you can walk into the presentation with more confidence, knowing that failure won't break you. Number 3, listen more than you talk. Nature has given to men one tongue, but 2 ears, that we may hear from others twice as much as we speak, Epictetus points out. It's easy to fall in love with the sound of your own voice, but often you gain more by listening than talking. Imagine you're having drinks with a group of friends. One of them is dominating the conversation, barely letting anyone else get a word in. You could try to compete, forcing your own stories and opinions into the mix. Or you could sit back and really focus on what others are sharing. You might learn something new. You might gain a fresh perspective, and you'll probably be more likable. As Epictetus said, strive for a 2-to-1 ratio. Listen twice as much as you speak. This principle serves us well beyond social situations too. When you're learning a new skill, don't jump to prove how much you know. Listen to those with more experience. Soak up their insights in conflicts. Don't get defensive and lash out. Listen to understand the other person's perspective. It takes practice to tame the tongue, but it's worth it. Number 4, do your duty for its own sake. We often expect recognition for doing good, but for Epictetus, virtue is its own reward, as the sun does not wait for prayers and incantations to be induced to rise, but immediately shines and is saluted by all. So do you also not wait for clappings of hands, and shouts and praise to be induced to do good, but be a doer of good voluntarily, and you will be beloved as much as the sun. For most of human history, the sun has been revered as the sustainer of life. It rises each day without fail, not because we shout its praises, but because that is its nature. Let that be a model for you. Do your duty, not for applause, but because it's the right thing. Perhaps it's your duty to be a good parent, making sure your child feels safe, loved, and supported. That work may be largely invisible. Your kid probably won't thank you every time you pack their lunch or cheer them on from the sidelines. But you keep showing up every day to do your best for them. And in the long run, that steadfast love and dedication will leave an imprint. By doing your duty without expecting credit, your actions take on a shine all their own. Number 5, diversify your dreams. Neither should a ship rely on one small anchor, nor should life rest on a single hope, writes Epictetus. It's a risk to pin all your aspirations on one goal. If you fall short, you're adrift. Have multiple anchors. For example, imagine your dream is to become a successful musician. You pour all your energy into it. But the music industry is fickle. Even immensely talented artists struggle to make it. If your entire identity and self-worth are wrapped up in this one pursuit, failure could be devastating. But what if you have other passions too? Maybe you also find fulfillment in teaching music to kids or in your relationships with bandmates. Having a range of hopes softens the blow if one doesn't pan out. The same goes for other areas of life. Don't make your job or a romantic relationship your sole source of joy and meaning. Invest in hobbies, friendships, causes you care about. A diversified portfolio of dreams creates a safety net. Number 6, ignore haters. The sting of an insult comes from the significance we give it, but Epictetus would have us brush off senseless jabs. As a goose is not frightened by cackling, nor a sheep by bleating, so let not the clamour of a senseless multitude alarm you. Imagine logging into Twitter and seeing that a post of yours has triggered a barrage of nasty comments from trolls. If you let yourself, you could spiral into an anguished mess, wondering how you offended so many people. But what if you could see those angry voices as meaningless as geese honking in the distance? With practice, you can. Remind yourself that the opinions of ill-informed strangers on the internet have no real bearing on your life. You'll never meet them. They have no power over you unless you give it to them. This goes for haters in the real world too. A jealous co-worker tries to undermine you by questioning your work in front of the boss. A nosy neighbour spreads a rumour about your personal life. You can't stop people from saying hurtful things, but you can refuse to let it rattle you. Consider the source. Dismiss them like you would the braying of an ass. It's noise, not truth. Number 7, hustle while you're still young. When asked how he built his fortune, the shipowner Lampus told Epictetus, "With no difficulty, my great wealth, but my small wealth, my first gains, with much labour." When you're starting out in your career, expect to struggle and grind. But if you put in that work up front, the rewards will come more easily later. Think of someone launching a small business. At first, they're doing everything themselves. Taking orders, making products, managing finances, marketing. They're putting in 12-hour days and still barely breaking even, but they're building a foundation. If they persist through the lean times, their efforts will start to compound. They can hire staff, streamline operations, expand their reach. The same goes for an entry-level employee hoping to rise through the ranks. They may start out fetching coffee and working long hours for low pay, but they're proving their commitment, skill, and work ethic, essential for moving up. As Epictetus's anecdote suggests, the beginning is always the hardest part, but view it as an investment. Hustle hard now, and you'll reap the benefits for years to come. Number 8. Cherish friends over things. Instead of a herd of oxen, wealth, endeavor to assemble herds of friends in your house. Epictetus tells us, true riches come from relationships, not material goods. Imagine someone who, by society's standards, has it all: a mansion, luxury cars, designer clothes, the latest gadgets. But picture them rattling around that big, empty house alone each night. They have no one to laugh with over dinner, no shoulder to cry on when tragedy strikes, no one who truly knows and loves them. Contrast that with someone of modest means who is encircled by loyal, caring friends and family. Who is richer? If you have enough to cover your basic needs, prioritize people over possessions. Call up an old friend and reminisce. Invite new neighbors over for game night. Cozy up on the couch with your spouse instead of scrolling on your phone. Take your niece out for ice cream and really listen to her chat about her day. Those are the moments that will bring you deep, lasting joy, the kind you could never buy in a store. Number 9. Keep it simple. Epictetus warns against getting caught up in excess and ostentation, as you would not choose to sail in a large and decorated and gold-laden ship, or ship ornamented with gold, and to be drowned. So do not choose to dwell in a large and costly house, and to be disturbed by cares. A life full of expensive things is often a life full of stress. Consider someone who stretches their budget to buy a flashy car. Suddenly they're saddled with an exorbitant monthly payment. They're paranoid about scratches and constantly comparing their ride to others on the road. Is the fleeting prestige worth the financial and emotional strain? Or take a couple who size up to a lavish house, only to find themselves overwhelmed by the mortgage and maintenance. The big rooms start to feel oppressive, a monument to their debt. The wisest way to live, Epictetus advises, is with simplicity. Cut out the non-essentials, and you'll have more freedom and peace of mind. Stick to a smaller home that meets your needs. Drive an older car that gets you where you need to go. Wear quality clothes, not flashy labels. Focus your time and money on experiences and relationships that enrich your life. When you're not weighed down by excess, you float through life more lightly. Number 10. Ponder your mortality. A morbid suggestion from Epictetus. Let death and exile, and all other things which appear terrible, be daily before your eyes, but death chiefly. And you will never entertain any abject thought, nor too eagerly covet anything. It's a common refrain that we should live each day as if it was our last. Pondering life's fragility and brevity reframes our priorities. One day we'll take our final breath. It could be decades from now, or it could be tomorrow. How do you want to spend the time you have? Imagine getting a devastating diagnosis from your doctor. Suddenly painfully aware that your days are numbered, you'd likely stop sweating the small stuff. Any old grudges and insecurities would fall away. You'd be laser focused on savoring precious moments with loved ones and leaving a meaningful legacy. Try to bring some of that urgency to a random Tuesday. Tell your parents you love them. Take a guilt-free nap in the sun. Make that career change you've been dreaming of. When we remember we're mortal, we're less inclined to waste our limited time on trivial worries and material gain. We're shaken out of complacency and into living more fully. Number 11. Work with what you're given. Much of life is beyond our control. Epictetus would have us accept and work with the hand we're dealt, instead of wishing things were different. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. Let's say you have your heart set on a promotion at work. You put in long hours, consistently over-deliver, and make your case to the higher-ups. But the position goes to an outside hire. It's natural to feel slighted and furious. How could they overlook your stellar track record? But stewing in resentment only keeps you stuck. A better approach is working with this new reality. What opportunities are there in your current role? What other companies might appreciate your experience? How can you gracefully welcome your new colleague? By finding the good in this unwelcome situation, you move forward. An even weightier example, losing a loved one. It's the kind of devastation that can shake your faith in the world. The easiest thing is to collapse into bitterness, demanding an explanation for their untimely passing, reliving every pang of grief. But at some point, hard as it is to imagine, you must go on. What would it look like to make peace with this reality you'd never choose? Maybe it's honoring your loved one by living each day with more intention and compassion. Maybe it's being gentler with yourself as you process the loss. Maybe it's finding meaning in the ways their love endures. The loss will always hurt, but there are ways to work with it, to have it deepen and expand you. Number 12. Focus on what is in your control. Epictetus draws a clear line between what we can and cannot control. Our opinions, desires, and actions are within our power. Our bodies, reputations, and fortunes ultimately are not. Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Say you've launched a new business, you've put in countless hours, developing your product, studying the market, building a team, and yet sales are sluggish. Negative reviews are trickling in. It would be easy to fall into a spiral of anxiety and self-doubt, but worrying about outcomes only makes you miserable. It doesn't change them. What is in your control? You can control the effort you put in each day to improve the product and customer experience. You can control your attitude and remain hopeful and proactive, even in the face of challenges. You can control your own actions, continuing to show up for your team and believing in your vision. By focusing on those, you give yourself the best shot at success. Consider a more personal example, dating. You can meticulously craft an online dating profile, initiate witty conversations, and plan memorable dates. But ultimately, you can't control whether someone will be attracted to you or want a relationship. And fixating on that will only make you come across as desperate or bitter. But if you concentrate on what is within your power, living a full life you're proud of, treating yourself and others with respect, opening yourself up to new people and experiences, you're more likely to find a fulfilling connection. Even if it doesn't happen right away, you'll be happier and more peaceful. Number 13, reframe challenges as opportunities. Whatsoever happens, it belongs to you to derive advantage from it. Epictetus advises, in every setback or crisis, there is an opportunity for growth and learning. A couple examples. You apply to your dream college only to get rejected. It stings. But what door might that rejection be opening? Maybe you end up attending your second choice school, where you find an incredible mentor and lifelong friends. Or the rejection motivates you to take a gap year and travel, learning more about yourself and the world. In retrospect, you may even be grateful for the redirection. Or imagine you're laid off from a job you've had for years. Terrifying as it is to be without that stability, it's also a blank slate. A chance to explore a new field or finally pursue an entrepreneurial idea. Maybe without that push, you would have stayed too long on a path that wasn't right for you. When life forces your hand, stay open to the ways it could be setting you up for something better. Of course, not everything happens for a reason. Random suffering visits all of us at times, but approaching challenges with a spirit of curiosity is. Asking ourselves what we can learn from them and how they might be catalyzing necessary change is far more empowering than seeing ourselves as helpless victims of fate. Number 14, no one can hurt you without your consent. Another cannot hurt you unless you allow them, Epictetus tells us. The deepest wounds come not from others' words and actions, but from the significance we ascribe to them. Imagine you're giving a presentation at work. Afterwards, a colleague comes up to you and says your delivery seemed nervous and some of your data was off. If you let them, those comments could crush you, sending you into a spiral of shame and self-doubt. How could you have botched such an important talk? Clearly, you're not cut out for this job. But your colleague's opinion, however ill-delivered, does not define you. You get to decide how much weight to give it. Maybe you learn something from the constructive criticism and vow to practice more before your next presentation. And then you move on, refusing to let one person's judgment shape your self-worth. What about a more serious situation? Perhaps a romantic partner betrays you, leaving you reeling from the pain of heartbreak and humiliation. You could tell yourself this means you're unlovable, that you'll never trust anyone again, that there's no coming back from a wound this deep. But even in the midst of searing pain, you have a choice. You can cling to the hurt and the story that this one person's actions dictate who you are and what your future holds. Or you can feel it all, the grief, the anger, the sadness, but maintain that your worth is unchanged, that you will love and be loved again, that you will heal. The betrayal hurts deeply, but you don't have to hurt yourself more by believing your pain is permanent. Number 15, see people's behavior as a reflection of them, not you. When someone is unkind, it's easy to take it personally, but Epictetus reminds us that people act based on their own beliefs, not facts. When any person harms you or speaks badly of you, remember that he acts or speaks from a supposition of its being his duty. Setting out then from these principles, you will meekly bear a person who reviles you, for you will say, upon every occasion, it seems so to him. Say you post a photo online and someone leaves a nasty comment about your appearance. The knee-jerk response is to feel attacked, to wonder what you did to deserve such cruelty, to assume their harsh words reveal some ugly truth about you. But what if you could reframe it? They don't really know you. They're acting on their own insecurities, biases, and impulses. In their worldview, mocking a stranger is acceptable. That speaks to their character, not yours. Pity them for their limited perspective and lack of kindness. But don't for a second believe their words define you. A trickier example, a close friend lashes out, criticizing your life choices and calling you selfish. That's harder to brush off than the barbs of faceless trolls. It cuts deep when someone who knows you well seems to think so little of you. But again, your friend is operating from their own baggage. Maybe they're feeling threatened by the ways you're evolving and worry they'll lose you. Maybe your growth is shining a light on their own stagnation. None of that excuses their cruel outburst, but remembering it seemed so to them can spare you some anguish. Their accusations come from their own distorted lens, not your core truth. Number 16, live by your own code. Whatever moral rules you have deliberately proposed to yourself, abide by them as if they were laws, and as if you would be guilty of impiety by violating any of them, Epictetus counsels. There is no one-size-fits-all ethical code. We each have to discern our own guiding principles, but once we do, we must strive to live by them, even when it's hard. Perhaps honesty is one of your core values. You believe deeply in telling the truth, even when a lie would be easier. So when a friend asks if you like the poem they nervously shared with you, you gently give your real opinion. The friendship might take a small hit, but you're staying true to yourself. Or maybe your personal code requires standing up to bigotry. So when a relative makes a cruel joke about a marginalized group over dinner, you speak up, even if it makes the meal tense. You'd rather deal with some discomfort than stay silent in the face of hate. This extends beyond interpersonal situations too. Let's say environmentalism is a key tenet of your worldview. So when your company considers a production change that will create more plastic waste, you respectfully object and suggest alternatives, even if it means ruffling some feathers. In risking your reputation, you keep your conscience clear. We can't control how others respond to our principles, but we can feel grounded in knowing we're doing our imperfect best to live with integrity. Number 17, assess things by their usefulness, not their flashiness. In a world that often prioritizes style over substance, Epictetus advocates focusing on function. As he puts it, for to that which once exceeds the fit measure, there is no bound. Let's consider a practical example. Shopping for a new laptop. You could get sucked in by sleek, cutting-edge models loaded with fancy features. The best specs, the hottest brand. But if you'll mainly use it for writing, emailing and reading, you might be better served by a budget model that simply handles those tasks well. Extra bells and whistles lose their luster if they're not useful. Or take the eternal question, what to wear? If you're dressing to impress strangers, you may gravitate towards the trendiest, priciest clothes. A certain logo or label feels like a marker of worth. But chances are, a more understated quality piece would actually serve you better. Well-made basics in flattering cuts will have you looking sharp in any situation. Fixating too much on flashy fashion statements is a path to constant dissatisfaction. There will always be a hot new designer or must-have accessory. Better to opt for reliable pieces that do their job of making you feel confident and comfortable. Number 18. Keep going in the face of rejection. Failure and rejection are facts of life, but Epictetus urges us not to take them so personally that we're derailed. Think about this. In 1985, Steve Jobs was unceremoniously fired from Apple, the company he had co-founded. This very public rejection could have been a crushing blow. Jobs had poured his heart and soul into building Apple from a garage startup into a pioneering tech giant. Now he found himself cast out by the board of directors and stripped of the company he loved. It would have been understandable if he had wallowed in bitterness or self-doubt. But Jobs chose a different path. He didn't let this setback define him or destroy his confidence. Instead, he continued to innovate and create, driven by his own vision rather than the validation of others. When Apple struggled in his absence, Jobs ultimately returned to the company, leading it to unprecedented heights with groundbreaking products like the iMac, iPod, iPhone, and iPad. Jobs' story is a powerful reminder that rejection need not be a dead end. We can choose to view it as a redirecting force, an opportunity to reassess and refine our approach. We can find meaning in the pursuit of our passions, even when met with resistance. And we can trust that our worth is not contingent on others' approval or acceptance. In the face of rejection, we can ask ourselves, will we be derailed by disappointment? or will we maintain our course with quiet determination? Will we internalize the judgment of others, or will we hold fast to our own sense of purpose? The path to success is often paved with setbacks, but as Jobs demonstrated, we need not let rejection extinguish our vision. We can choose to keep going, to keep creating, to keep believing in the value of our endeavors, no matter the obstacles we encounter. Number 19, think carefully before acting. We live in a world that prioritizes speed and snap decisions, but Epictetus cautions us to deliberate much before saying or doing anything, for you will not have the power of recalling what has been said or done. Our words and actions have consequences that we can't always anticipate. Once something is said or done, you can't take it back. It's imprinted on the world, so don't be hasty, especially with big decisions. For example, a friend comes to you heartbroken over a recent breakup. They ask if they should send their ex an angry text telling them off. Your first instinct may be to encourage it. After all, the ex sounds like a jerk who deserves it. But resist that knee-jerk impulse. Advise your friend to wait a day or two before doing anything. Once their emotions settle, they'll likely realize an angry text won't make them feel better in the long run. It could even make a messy situation worse. By deliberating before acting, you can avoid saying or doing things you'll regret. Lastly, number 20. Embrace your role. Remember that thou art an actor in a play, of such a kind as the author may choose. If short, of a short one; if long, of a long one. If he wishes thee to play the part of a beggar, see that thou act even this adroitly. And so for the rest, Epictetus asks us to accept our role in life, not to sulk over the one we wish we had. Someone born with a chronic illness may rail against the unfairness of it all, falling into bitterness and despair, or they can embrace this part they've been handed and give it their all. They can be a model of resilience, squeezing joy out of every good day and facing the bad ones with grace. They can use their experience to help others in similar situations. They can remind the world that a meaningful life is possible even amid tremendous challenge. What about someone who dreams of being a star athlete, only to realize they don't quite have what it takes? They could cling to their thwarted hopes, forever mourning what might have been. Or they could pour their passion into being the most dedicated fan, a source of boundless encouragement to others. Maybe they become a coach, finding deep fulfillment in nurturing others' talent. Maybe they channel their love for the game into sports writing. All of this is easier said than done. Our culture is forever urging us to fight for the starring role, to demand a rewrite of the script. But there is peace, and often surprising joy, in bringing our full selves to the role we have. Stoic friends, thank you for spending time with us today. Hope you got some good tips on how to reduce anxiety and be more calm in your life. Please like and subscribe. Follow these tips and you too, my fellow Stoics, can be free as a dove.